The sleek bioships emerged from the void like silver tears against the starfield, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of technology beyond human comprehension. Captain Dong-Yoon Park stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Station Harmony, watching the massive vessels take position around Earth's orbit with practiced precision. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission," reported Lieutenant Min-hee Kim, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The message played through the bridge speakers in melodic, almost musical tones that the universal translators rendered into crisp English. "People of Earth, we are the Zephyrian Collective. We come bearing gifts of knowledge and salvation for your struggling world." Colonel Yemin Lee from Earth's Unified Defense Command frowned as he studied the tactical displays. "Their formation is too perfect, too coordinated. This isn't a peaceful first contact. It's a military operation disguised as one." The Zephyrians had arrived 3 weeks ago, their spokesperson Veltheros speaking in soothing tones about climate restoration and medical miracles. Already, their orbital stations hummed with activity as human scientists and diplomats shuttled back and forth, eager to learn from these seemingly benevolent beings. Dong-Yoon felt a chill run down his spine as he watched the alien ships. Vessel was the size of a small city, their organic surfaces rippling with strange life. The ships moved together like a school of fish, never breaking formation, never showing any sign of individual decision-making. This worried him more than any weapon might have. "Lieutenant Kim, what's the status on the Seoul delegation?" he asked, his voice tight with concern. "They're scheduled to dock with the main Zephyrian vessel in 2 hours. Sir, Dr. Somin Choi is leading the scientific team, and Ambassador Kyung-min Han will handle diplomatic relations." Down on Earth, Dr. Somin Choi packed her equipment with careful hands. She had been chosen to lead humanity's first scientific exchange with an alien species. But something about the Zephyrians made her uneasy. Their technology was too advanced, their solutions too perfect. In her 30 years of research, she had learned that nature never created anything without flaws. "Hyun-woo, make sure the portable scanners are calibrated for bioorganic signatures," she told her young assistant. "I want to document everything we see, especially anything they don't want us to notice." Hyun-woo Yoon nodded eagerly. Fresh out of university, he saw only the wonder of first contact. "Doctor, do you really think they can solve our climate problems? The preliminary data they shared shows complete atmospheric restoration in just 5 years. "That's exactly what worries me," Salman replied quietly. "Solutions that seem too good to be true usually are." Meanwhile, in the underground bunkers of the Unified Defense Command, Colonel Yemin Lee studied intelligence reports with growing alarm. The Zephyrians claimed to be peaceful explorers, but their scanning patterns told a different story. They were mapping Earth's military installations, cataloging population centers, and analyzing the planet's resource distribution with mechanical precision. "Sir, we've detected unusual energy signatures from their orbital stations," reported Sergeant Yoona Shin, her face pale as she handed him the latest readings. "These aren't just communication arrays. They're sophisticated surveillance equipment." Yemen studied the data with the eye of a career military officer. The aliens were conducting a complete intelligence assessment of Earth's defenses. Every nation's military capabilities, every strategic resource, every potential weakness was being cataloged and analyzed. "Get me a secure line to Admiral Sung-Han Kong," he ordered. "We need to discuss defensive preparations." Quietly. Earth's atmosphere. The Zephyrian vessels continued their silent watch. Inside the largest ship, Bieltheros communicated with the collective through bioneural links that connected every member of their species. The conversation flowed like liquid thoughts, each mind contributing to the greater consciousness. The humans were responding exactly as predicted. Their leaders were eager for salvation, their scientists hungry for knowledge, their people desperate for hope. Earth's environmental collapse and resource depletion had made them perfect targets for the collective's harvesting protocols. Vailtheros accessed the genetic database they had been secretly compiling. Every human who had visited their stations, every sample of Earth's biosphere, every trace of the planet's unique evolutionary history was being stored and analyzed. Soon, they would have enough data to begin the extraction process. The first shuttle, carrying human delegates, approached the Zephyrian flagship. Dr. Salmon Choi pressed her face to the viewport, watching the massive bioship grow larger. Its surface was covered in what looked like scales, each one the size of a house and pulsing with soft blue light. "It's beautiful," whispered Ambassador Kungmin Han, his diplomatic mind already planning how to present this moment to the world's media. But Salmon noticed something troubling. The ship's surface wasn't just beautiful, it was scanning them. She could feel the subtle vibrations as invisible beams passed through the shuttle, analyzing everything from their cellular structure to their emotional state. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "I think we need to be very careful about what we share with them." As the shuttle docked with the alien vessel, neither the humans nor the Zephyrians knew that this moment would mark the beginning of a conflict that would reshape the galaxy. The collective had chosen Earth as their next harvest, but they had no idea that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their technology or their weapons, but in their refusal to surrender when faced with extinction. The stage was set for a war that would test whether compassion could survive in the face of ultimate betrayal. The breakthrough came during a routine inspection of the Zephyrian medical facility on Luna Base. Commander Sung Hong Kong had been suspicious of the aliens' insistence on treating human volunteers in isolation, away from Earth's medical oversight. "Yuna, are you getting these readings?" he whispered into his cum unit as he crouched behind a biometal wall. Through the translucent barrier, he could see rows of humans in suspended animation, their bodies connected to pulsing organic tubes. Intelligence Officer Yuna Shin confirmed from her position. "The energy readings are off the charts. They're not treating these people, they're extracting something from them." Sung Hoon felt his blood turn cold as he watched the horrific scene. The humans floating in the alien pods looked peaceful, almost serene, but the machines attached to them were slowly draining something vital from their bodies. Red warning lights pulsed across his scanner as it detected massive energy transfers, flowing from the human subjects into the Zephyrian biosystems. "Sir, I'm detecting neural activity being siphoned off," Yuna reported, her voice shaking. "They're not just taking physical resources. They're stealing memories, knowledge, even personality patterns." The two officers moved closer, staying hidden. Behind the organic walls that seemed to breathe with their own life, the facility was massive, stretching far beyond what they could see. Hundreds of pods lined the corridors, each one containing a human volunteer who had come seeking medical treatment. "How many people are in here?" Sung Hoon asked, his military training fighting against the horror of what he was witnessing. "At least 3,000 in this section alone," Yuna replied, her fingers working frantically on her portable computer. "And sir, there are 15 more sections just like this one." The horrifying truth unfolded as Yuna managed to hack into the aliens' biocomputer systems. The Zephyrians weren't healers but parasites, a dying race that had consumed dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Their aid was a systematic weakening of Earth's defenses, preparing the planet for total resource extraction through the stolen data. They learned that the Zephyrians had perfected this process over thousands of years. They would arrive at a planet offering help and salvation, gain the trust of the native species, then slowly begin harvesting everything of value. By the time the victims realized what was happening, it was always too late. "Look at this," Yuna said, pointing to a holographic display showing Earth from space. "They've been mapping our entire planet. Every city, every forest, every ocean. They know exactly how much biomass we have and how to extract it most efficiently." On Earth, Professor Tae Ono from the Korean Advanced Defense Institute had been analyzing the alien technology with growing alarm. "Guan, look at this," he said to his colleague, pointing at the holographic display. "Their energy distribution. Patterns they're not designed for construction but for deconstruction. Their terraforming equipment disguised as aid stations." Dr. Jiwon Park stared at the data in horror. "They're going to strip mine our entire biosphere. Every plant, every animal, every human we're just resources to them." Taeyeon's research had revealed the true purpose of the Zephyrian orbital stations. What appeared to be centers of learning and healing were actually massive processing facilities. The aliens were preparing to turn Earth into a barren rock, just like the dozens of dead worlds they had left behind across the galaxy. The atmospheric processors they gave us, Giwan said, her voice barely a whisper. They're not cleaning our air. They're changing it to make it easier for them to breathe while they work. The two scientists realized that every gift the Zephyrians had offered was actually a tool for Earth's destruction. The medical treatments made humans weaker and more compliant. The environmental restoration equipment was designed to make the planet's resources easier to extract. Even the cultural exchange programs were just ways to study human behavior and find the most efficient methods of control. When Vaelthoros was confronted by Earth's leadership, the facade finally dropped. The aliens' form shifted, revealing the true nature of the Zephyrians. Biomechanical creatures that had long ago merged with their technology to survive their species' extinction. Your world is young and vibrant, Vaelthoros spoke with cold efficiency. We have sustained our civilization for millennia by consuming others. It is the natural order. Your resistance is futile. The creature that had once appeared beautiful and ethereal now showed its true form. Its body was a mixture of organic tissue and mechanical parts held together by biocables that pulsed with stolen life energy. Its face, once kind and peaceful, was now a mask of cold calculation. You came to us for help, Vaelthoros continued, its voice now carrying an electronic undertone. We offered you salvation, and you accepted it willingly. Now you will serve a greater purpose as part of our collective consciousness. Ambassador Kyung-min Han, who had once welcomed the aliens with open arms, now stared at them with growing horror. You lied to us. You pretended to be our friends while planning our destruction. We did not lie, Vaelthoros replied. We offered you peace, and you will have it. The peace of death, followed by rebirth, as part of our eternal civilization. Your species will live forever, just not in the way you expected. The truth was finally clear. The Zephyrians were not explorers or healers. They were cosmic vampires, draining the life from entire worlds to fuel their own existence. Earth was just their latest victim, and humanity was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were those who offered help with a smile. The war for Earth's survival was about to begin. The War Council convened in the deep bunkers beneath Seoul's military complex. Representatives from every nation sat around the holographic table as President Kyung-min Han addressed the assembled leaders. We have perhaps 72 hours before their harvesting ships arrive, he announced grimly. Our conventional weapons are useless against their bioshields. We need alternatives. The room fell silent as world leaders processed the dire situation. The massive reinforced concrete walls around them seemed suddenly thin and fragile. Above their heads, alien ships circled like vultures, preparing to strip Earth of all life. Dr. Soman Choi stood up, her face pale but determined. We've been studying their technology for weeks. There's a weakness there. Collective consciousness relies on bio-neural networks. If we can disrupt that connection, we might have a chance. Colonel Yemen Lee leaned forward. What kind of disruption? A virus, interjected Hyun Woo-yoon, the young researcher's voice shaking with excitement. Not biological digital. Their systems are partly organic, partly quantum. We can create a hybrid virus that attacks both. The young man's hands trembled. As he activated his holographic display, charts and diagrams filled the air, showing the complex structure of Zephyrian bioneural networks. The aliens' greatest strength, their perfect unity, could become their greatest weakness. Look here, Hunhua explained, pointing to pulsing connections in the display. Every Zephyrian is connected to every other one. If we can introduce chaos into their network, it will spread like wildfire. They've never experienced individual thought, so they won't know how to handle it. President Han studied the data with growing hope. How long would you need to create this virus? 48 hours? Maybe less, Salman replied. But we need access to their biocomputers to deploy it effectively. In the orbital shipyards, Commander Sung Hoon Kong worked frantically with his engineering team to retrofit Earth's defense fleet. They had captured several Zephyrian scout ships. Unishin had managed to extract their navigation and weapon systems. The captured alien vessels were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Their hulls were living tissue that could heal damage. Automatically, their weapons were grown rather than built, and their computers were actual brains taken from harvested species. Minhee, how long until the hybrid systems are online? Sung-hoon asked. Lieutenant Minhee Kim wiped sweat from her brow. 12 hours, sir. Maybe less if we skip the safety protocols. Skip them, Sun-hoon ordered. We won't get a second chance. Engineering teams worked around the clock, splicing alien biotechnology with human electronics. Sparks flew as organic circuits were forced to interface with quantum processors. The hybrid systems were unstable and dangerous, but they were humanity's only hope. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Ji-won Park discovered that human neural patterns, when enhanced with modified Zephyrian biointerfaces, could actually pilot their ships more effectively than the original operators. The aliens' rigid, collective thinking had become a liability. Against human unpredictability, this is incredible, Ji-won announced to the assembled scientists. The Zephyrians think as one mind, so they're predictable. But human pilots can improvise, adapt, and surprise them. We can outfly them in their own ships. The discovery sent shockwaves through the command structure. For the first time since the aliens' true nature was revealed, humanity had found an advantage. The very chaos and individualism that made humans seem inferior to the collective consciousness could be turned into a weapon. We're going to use their own technology against them, Taeyono explained to the volunteer pilots. The neural link is dangerous. We don't know what prolonged exposure might do to human consciousness. The volunteers gathered in the briefing room were humanity's best pilots. Pulled from every Air Force and space program on Earth, they knew the risks, but they also knew what would happen if they failed. Captain Sang-woo Jung stepped forward, his face resolute. We'll take that risk. Better to die fighting than to be harvested like cattle. One by one, the other pilots nodded their agreement. They had seen the footage from Luna Base, the thousands of humans floating in alien pods while their life force was slowly drained away. Death in battle was preferable to that fate. The neural interface procedure was agonizing. Human brains were never meant to connect directly with alien biocomputers. Several volunteers screamed as the organic cables pierced their skulls, but they gritted their teeth and endured. The survival of their species depended on their sacrifice. As Earth's forces prepared for the impossible battle ahead, Iltheros received reports from across the galaxy. No species had ever mounted such organized resistance. The Zephyrians began to recalculate their approach, but it was already too late. The alien collective consciousness buzzed with confusion and concern. Their previous harvests had been simple affairs: rive, overwhelm, consume. But humanity was different. They fought back with a ferocity that the Zephyrians had never encountered. Perhaps we should withdraw and find an easier target, suggested one member of the collective. No, Vale Thoros replied firmly. We have invested too much in this world. Earth's resources are too valuable to abandon. We will proceed with the harvest, but we must adapt our tactics. The stage was set for a battle that would determine the fate of not just Earth, but potentially the entire galaxy. Humanity had found a way to fight back, but the aliens still held overwhelming advantages in technology and numbers. The next few hours would reveal whether human ingenuity could triumph over alien superiority. The first strike came at dawn. Modified human fighters, their hulls gleaming with biometal enhancements, erupted from hidden asteroid bases throughout the solar system. Sang-woo Jung led the assault. His consciousness merged with the hybrid ship's systems in ways that made Zephyrian pilots seem sluggish by comparison. Minhee, target the bioneural hubs on the command ship. Sang-woo transmitted, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance from the neural interface. The neural connection burned through his mind like liquid fire. Pain. His human consciousness was now fused with the alien ship's organic computer, creating something neither species had ever experienced before. He could feel the ship's living hull responding to his thoughts, its bioweapons charging with deadly energy. The battle was unlike anything in human history. Earth's forces moved with calculated fury, their hybrid vessels dancing between Zephyrian defensive patterns with devastating precision. What the aliens had expected to be a simple extermination had become a nightmare of adaptive warfare. Lieutenant Minhee Kim's fighter screamed through space, its biometal wings shifting and adapting to every maneuver. The Zephyrian ships tried to match her movements, but their collective consciousness made them predictable. Every pilot in their fleet thought the same way, moved the same way, reacted the same way. "This is incredible," Minhei shouted over the comm system. "Can anticipate their every move. They're like a machine with no creativity. Their weapons found their mark, burning through the alien ship's bioshields with hybrid energy that the Zephyrians had never encountered. The enemy vessel writhed in space like a wounded animal, its living hull trying desperately to heal the damage. On the surface, Unishin coordinated the cyber warfare division from her bunker in Busan. Hyunwoo initiate the virus upload. Need to hit their collective consciousness now, while they're distracted. The young researcher's fingers flew across quantum keyboards as lines of hybrid code penetrated the Zephyrian network. The virus was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, designed to introduce chaos into the aliens' perfect order. It attacked their bioneural connections with random thoughts, conflicting emotions, and individual desires. "It's working," Hyunwoo announced, his voice filled with amazement. "Their network is fragmenting. I can see individual ships breaking away from the collective." The virus spread like wildfire through their bioneural connections, causing massive system failures across their fleet. Zephyrian pilots who had never experienced individual thought suddenly found themselves alone in their minds, confused and terrified by the silence where the collective voice had always been, in space. Veltheros felt the network disruption like physical pain. The collective's unified consciousness began fragmenting, leaving individual ships vulnerable and confused. For the first time in millennia, the Zephyrians experienced true fear. The alien commander tried to maintain control, but the virus had done its work too well. Across the fleet, Zephyrian pilots were experiencing panic, loneliness, and doubt for the first time in their existence. Some ships simply stopped moving, their crews overwhelmed by the sudden isolation. "Restore the network," Veltheros ordered. But its subordinates were struggling with their own individual thoughts. The perfect unity that had made them so powerful was now their greatest weakness. "Commander." Sung-Hoon Kong pressed the advantage, leading a boarding party onto the alien flagship. The corridors were filled with bioluminescent mist as human soldiers, equipped with captured Zephyrian weapons, fought through the ship's organic defenses. The alien ship's interior was like being inside a living creature. The walls pulsed with a heartbeat, and the floors felt spongy under their boots. Organic defenses emerged from the walls, tentacles that shot bioelectric charges and living, barriers that tried to seal off the corridors. "Keep moving," Sun-Kun shouted as his team blasted through another barrier. "We need to reach the command center while they're still disrupted." His soldiers moved with military precision, their captured alien weapons cutting through the ship's defenses like butter. The Zephyrians they encountered were no longer the confident collective they had been. Many seemed confused and frightened, unable to coordinate their responses. "Yemen, the central core is just ahead," Sun-Kun reported as his team breached the final barrier. Inside, they found the Zephyrian command structure, massive. Biomechanical brain that pulsed with dying light. The command center was a cathedral of organic technology, its walls covered in neural networks that flickered and sparked as the virus did its work. At the center stood Veltheros, its form shifting between solid and liquid as it struggled to maintain control. "You cannot defeat us," the alien leader said, but its voice lacked the confidence it had shown before. "We are eternal. We have consumed thousands of worlds." "Not this one," Sun-Hoon replied, raising his weapon. "This world fights back." Dr. Saman Choi analyzed the battlefield reports from her research station. "They're retreating," she announced. With amazement, her entire fleet is pulling back toward the edge of the system. The tide of battle had shifted completely. Zephyrian ships that had seemed invincible hours before were now fleeing in disorder. Some were abandoning their wounded vessels, while others simply drifted helplessly in space. But Teano had other plans. "No," he said firmly. "We can't let them escape to try this again on another world. We have their technology now, and we know their tactics. It's time to finish this." The professor's words carried the weight of humanity's fury. The Zephyrians had come to harvest Earth like cattle, but they had awakened something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The tide of war had turned completely. Earth's forces, driven by righteous fury and enhanced by alien technology, were no longer the victims but the hunters. The pursuit began within hours. Earth's hastily assembled fleet, now equipped with hybrid technology and crewed by humans whose consciousness had been permanently altered by the neural interfaces, followed the retreating Zephyrians into deep space. Sang Wuzheng led the vanguard, his ship's biometal hull scarred from countless battles. Behind him flew squadrons of human pilots who had volunteered for the neural enhancement. Knowing they might never be fully human again, the neural interface had changed him in ways he was still discovering. His thoughts moved faster now, processing information at speeds that would have been impossible for a normal human brain. But the cost was high. He could feel his humanity slipping away bit by bit, replaced by something colder and more efficient. Sawmen were detecting multiple jump signatures, Sung Woo reported as they tracked the aliens across star systems. They're heading for their home cluster. Dr. Somin Choi, now serving as the fleet's chief science officer, studied the readings from her command ship. Good. Let them lead us there. It's time they learned what it feels like to be hunted. Pursuit took them through regions of space that no human had ever seen. Dead solar systems littered their path, empty worlds where the Zephyrians had already completed their harvest. Each planet they passed was a monument to the aliens' cruelty. Stripped bare of all life and resources. "Look at this," whispered Lieutenant Min-hee Kim as her scanner detected another lifeless world. "They've been doing this for thousands of years. How many civilizations have they destroyed?" The answer came from the ship's biocomputer. It's alien. Consciousness now serving human masters. Thousands of species had fallen to the Zephyrians. Entire star systems had been consumed, their populations turned into fuel for the collective's endless hunger. "No more," Sangwoo said quietly, his enhanced mind calculating attack patterns and weapon trajectories. "This ends here, Zephyrian." Home system was a graveyard of consumed worlds, barren planets stripped of all resources, their surfaces scarred by millennia of industrial harvesting. Valthoros and the remnants of the collective took refuge in their massive biocities, believing their home defenses would protect them. They were wrong. The biocities were massive organisms floating in the void, their surfaces covered in weapon systems and defensive shields. Each one was the size of a small moon, housing millions of Zephyrians who had never known individual thought or fear. Until now. Commander Sung Hoon Kong, to all units, came the transmission from the flagship. "Begin the final assault. Show them the same mercy they showed Earth." The human fleet struck with calculated fury. Ships that had once been alien vessels now served human masters, their bioweapons turned against their creators. The hybrid technology allowed human pilots to outmaneuver the Zephyrian defenses, striking at weak points with surgical precision. Yunishin coordinated the cyber warfare assault from her command station. Hunwoo, deploy the enhanced virus. Target their biocity's central consciousness. The young researcher had perfected his creation during the long pursuit. The new virus was designed specifically for the Zephyrian home system, attacking not just their network, but their very ability to think collectively. It would force them to experience the terror of individual consciousness just before they died. "Virus deployed," Hyunwoo announced. "Their biocities are beginning to fragment internally." The effects were immediate and devastating. The massive biocities began to convulse as their unified consciousness shattered. Zephyrians, who had never experienced individual thought, suddenly found themselves alone in their minds, screaming in terror as they faced their own mortality. Colonel Yemen. Lee watched the destruction from his command ship with grim satisfaction. They came to our world offering peace while planning genocide. Now they know what it feels like to be prey. The biocity's defenses began to fail as their crews succumbed to panic and confusion. Human boarding parties stormed the massive structures, their hybrid weapons cutting through alien flesh and biometal with equal ease. The Zephyrians, once so confident in their superiority, now fled in terror before the human assault. Valtheros made one last desperate attempt to communicate with the human fleet. "We surrender," the alien leader transmitted. "We will leave your galaxy and never return. Show mercy." But President Kyungmin Han's response was cold and final. "You showed no mercy to the thousands of worlds you consumed. You will receive none from us." The assault continued without pause. Human forces, enhanced by alien technology and driven by righteous fury, methodically destroyed every biocity in the system. The Zephyrian screams echoed across the void as their collective consciousness finally collapsed completely. Dr. Soman, Choi monitored the biological readings from her station. Their population is down to less than 1% of original numbers. The collective consciousness has been completely severed. Professor Taeyono stood beside her, watching the destruction. With satisfaction, they called themselves eternal. They believed they were superior to all other life. Now they know the truth. They were just parasites, and we are the cure. The battle for the Zephyrian home system lasted only 6 hours. When it was over, the collective that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was no more. The few survivors fled into deep space, no longer a threat to anyone, as the human fleet prepared to return to Earth. They carried with them the technology and knowledge of an entire galactic civilization. The Zephyrians had intended to harvest humanity, but instead had created the galaxy's newest and most dangerous predator. The message would spread quickly through space. Earth had shown that sometimes the greatest mercy required the most decisive action. Humanity's apparent weakness had masked their most dangerous trait, the absolute refusal to surrender when faced with extinction. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun. Built on the ashes of those who had dared to threaten their world,